Something is shifting in Pittsburgh, and not just in the win column. There's a subtle but powerful change in tone coming from Mike Tomlin, and for those who have followed his pressers for years, it's almost jarring. Because if there's one thing Tomlin usually doesn't do, it's lay his cards on the table, especially not when it comes to strategy. But this week, he let something slip, or maybe, and this is even more interesting, maybe he meant to. As the Steelers gear up for a divisional run starting with Cleveland, Tomlin was asked about the use of heavier sets against Minnesota and whether that approach was specific to that matchup. And instead of deflecting, as he almost always does, Tomlin went into full football professor mode. He talked about personality, about identity, about weight classes. Yes, weight classes, as if we were talking about UFC, not the NFL. He referenced the idea that you simply cannot block 300-pound defensive ends with 250-pound tight ends. That's not a quote to be taken lightly, because he didn't just give a generic answer. He made it specific. He named names. He mentioned Darnell Washington, and more importantly, he explained why Washington was drafted in the first place. That's rare for Tomlin. Really rare. The message was crystal clear. The Steelers' offensive identity, especially against 4-3 defenses, is shifting towards size and power. No more try to force finesse into formations that demand brute strength. No more asking Connor Hayward or Pat Freiermuth to do what physics simply won't allow. You need a man who can go toe-to-toe with a 300-pound edge rusher. Enter Washington. This wasn't just coach speak. It felt like a mid-season manifesto. And if you're someone who's been wondering whether the Steelers actually have direction on offense, this is about as close to a North Star as you're going to get. But it goes even deeper than that. Because if Tomlin is suddenly this open about the team's personnel approach, it begs the question, what else is quietly shifting behind the scenes? Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Either way, we got a peek at the kind of football this coaching staff believes it needs to play to survive in the AFC North. It's not just about matchups. It's about identity. And this team, at least for now, is choosing to be big, mean, and unapologetically physical. You can see it on the snap count, too. Forget the official depth chart. Forget what the media guides say. The truth is in the tape. Against Minnesota, out of 53 offensive snaps, Darnell Washington was on the field for 48. That's not a fluke. That's a statement. Meanwhile, Jonnu Smith logged 16, and Freiermuth only 15. If you're still clinging to the idea that Washington is some sort of situational tight end, or that this was just a one-off game plan based on Flores' edge-heavy defense, you might want to revisit Tomlin's comments. He didn't leave room for ambiguity. You can't block 4-3 edges with light guys. Period. And that brings us to a more pressing issue for this team: third downs. Because for all the talk about personnel and identity, the scoreboard doesn't care how big your tight ends are if you can't convert. Right now, the Steelers rank 20th in the league in third down conversion rate, hovering around 38%. Even with a slight uptick in Ireland, it's still far from where a playoff-caliber team needs to be. Elite offenses sit at 42% and up. Pittsburgh's nowhere close. And that's a problem that can't be masked by scheme alone. This is where the tight end rotation really matters. Because while Washington is turning heads with his blocking and sheer presence, guys like Jonnu Smith and Pat Freiermuth are still essential for moving the chains. Smith had 88 catches in Miami last season. 55 of them went for first downs. That's production. That's reliability. And Freiermuth has shown time and time again that he's dependable in clutch situations. So what gives? Why are these guys being phased out? Maybe they aren't. Maybe this is just part of the evolution. Maybe Washington is the training wheels, as some have put it, necessary to get through this part of the schedule, but not the long-term ride. The hope has to be that eventually the offense finds a way to blend the brute force of Washington with the pass-catching finesse of Freiermuth and Smith. Because if it doesn't, Pittsburgh's offense is going to keep stalling on third down, and that's not something this defense can bail out every week. Speaking of defense, Cleveland is coming town with one of the nastiest units in the league. Say what you want about the Browns, but their defense is the real deal. They're aggressive, disciplined, and capable of completely wrecking a game plan. If the Steelers want to move the ball, they'll need more than just physicality. They'll need precision. This might not be the game to take the training wheels off, but at some point they'll have to. And when they do, the offense has to be ready to ride without excuses. There's a narrative out there about Mike Tomlin and so-called trap games. You've heard it. The idea that his teams play down to the competition, that they lose games they shouldn't. But when you actually look at the numbers, that myth falls apart. Since 2019, Tomlin has a winning percentage of over 80% against teams that finish the season with losing records. That's better than guys like Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, Kyle Shanahan. The list goes on. So if you're expecting the Steelers to stumble just because they're playing a struggling Cleveland squad, you might want to pump the brakes. Now, that's not to say this will be easy. Division games never are. But the idea that this is some classic Tomlin trap game is more fan fiction than fact. The Steelers win these matchups more often than not. And if anything, the way Tomlin has spoken this week suggests a level of focus and clarity that should have fans feeling optimistic. He's not hiding behind cliches or vague answers. He's telling you exactly what the team needs to do and who they need to be to win. So where does that leave us? Well, with more questions than answers, as usual. But at least now we know this team isn't afraid to lean into its strengths. They're not trying to pretend to be something they're not. If the Steelers are going to make noise down the stretch, it won't be with gadget plays or gimmicky looks. It'll be with big bodies, hard-nosed football, and a commitment to controlling the line of scrimmage. That's the message. That's the mission. And for the first time in a while, it feels like everyone, from the head coach to the rookies, is finally on the same page. Now, while everything Tomlin said about physical identity and personnel makes perfect sense, it still doesn't solve the deeper issue plaguing this offense: rhythm. That's what's been missing. You can draft big, you can scheme power, and you can dominate in terms of snap counts with your heavy sets. But if you're not consistently finding rhythm in your drives, then you're going to stay stuck where this team has been all year, middle of the pack. And what's wild is that for all this effort to create a physical identity, the execution on key downs remains frustratingly erratic. The third down problem is the tip of the iceberg, because third downs are never just about that one play. They're about the first and second down calls that set them up. And too often, the Steelers find themselves in third and long situations where the odds are already stacked against them before the ball is even snapped. You can throw all the physical tight ends you want at that problem, but if the play calling is predictable, or if the quarterback isn't given enough time, or if the receivers aren't getting separation, then guess what? The chains aren't moving. And that's been the reality week after week. It's not just about strength at the line. It's about coherence across the board. Kenny Pickett, to his credit, has shown flashes. There have been moments, and not just in garbage time, where you see the potential. The arm talent is there. The mobility is there. The willingness to take shots down the field. At times, yes. But the consistency? That's the part that has fans scratching their heads. Because you can see that the tools are there. You can see that the staff is starting to shape an identity around him. But there's still a gap between what this offense wants to be and what it actually is. And until that gap starts to close, it's hard to imagine this unit becoming reliable in high-pressure moments. And again, that's where the tight end should matter more than ever. Freiermuth isn't just a safety valve. He's a legit option in the middle of the field, someone who can box out defenders and fight through contact to pick up 6, 7, 8 yards. Jonnu Smith, when utilized properly, is a nightmare in motion, capable of taking quick outs or screens and turning them into something bigger. But for some reason, that part of the game has been inconsistent. It's not just usage, it's trust. And that's where you start wondering how much of this is scheme, how much is quarterback decision-making, and how much is just flat-out coaching philosophy. What Tomlin revealed this week, intentionally or not, is that the team knows exactly what kind of football it wants to play. That's a big step forward. There's no more pretending this offense is going to become a fast-paced, spread-it-out, high-octane air show. That's not the DNA. That's not who they are. What they want is control, physical dominance, time of possession, fewer mistakes. Let the defense rest, and then unleash hell. It's classic Tomlin football, and honestly, it's smart football if it's executed correctly. And if they're going to pull that off, then this week is a real test. Because Cleveland's defense doesn't just show up, it punches you in the mouth. They've got pass rushers who can turn a decent offensive line into a mess. They've got linebackers who read the play before it develops. And their secondary, even without the biggest names in the league, is feisty and opportunistic. This isn't the kind of game where you get to figure things out on offense. This is a game where you need to show up with a plan, execute it from the first drive, and keep pressure off your quarterback. Because if you're behind the sticks early, Cleveland will come after you. And once they start pinning their ears back, it's game over. That's why it's so important for the Steelers to show they can be more than just a bruising offense. The physical style is the foundation, sure, but now it has to evolve. There's got to be a second layer to the game plan, whether it's a surprise screen to a tight end or a misdirection that leverages the defense's aggressiveness. This offense needs wrinkles. Predictability is the enemy of efficiency. And right now, the Steelers have been walking that line a little too often. Run, pass isn't going to cut it anymore. Not against defenses that are prepared and hungry. Not in October. Not in the AFC North. The irony in all of this is that, for years, fans and analysts have called for the Steelers to establish the run again. To be tough again. To bring back the grit that defined a franchise for decades. Now that they're doing it, or at least trying to, there's still frustration. Because physical football only works if it creates results. And while there are signs that something is building, it's not fully there yet. You don't get points for style. You get points for points. And that's still a struggle for this unit. But make no mistake, if Darnell Washington continues to develop the way the coaching staff hopes, and if Freiermuth and Smith can find their roles again in this evolving offense, there's a real chance this team becomes something dangerous by December. It's all about timing. And right now, with a rough stretch of games ahead, this might be the last moment to fine-tune before things really start to count. So maybe the heavy sets aren't just a gimmick. Maybe they're the first sign of a team finally understanding who it is and who it isn't. Because there's nothing wrong with building an offense around your tight ends. Plenty of successful teams have done it. But it only works if those tight ends are truly involved. Blocking is one thing. But the big difference between surviving and thriving comes down to impact on the scoreboard. If the Steelers can start turning size into sustained drives and sustained drives into touchdowns, then you might look back at this stretch of the season as the turning point. Until then, though, the microscope remains. Every third down, every red zone trip, every drive that ends in a field goal instead of 6. It's all part of the larger picture of whether this team is actually becoming what it says it wants to be. We'll find out soon enough, because Cleveland's not showing up to play nice. And if Pittsburgh isn't ready to match that intensity with both brains and brawn, this one could get ugly fast. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Pittsburgh. If the rumor mill is to be believed, the Steelers are quietly shaking things up. Word on the street is that JAKOBI MEYERS, affectionately dubbed Mr. Third Down for his uncanny ability to come through in clutch moments, has agreed to join the Steel City squad. While nothing has been officially confirmed, sources close to the team hint that this could be the move that finally gives Pittsburgh the offensive spark they've been chasing. MEYERS, who has built a reputation as one of the most reliable receivers in the league when the chips are down, seems like a perfect fit for a Steelers offense eager to diversify its weapons. Known for his crisp route running, sticky hands, and knack for finding the open spot in tight coverage, MEYERS has been a consistent third-down nightmare for defenses across the NFL. Now, insiders suggest he could be bringing that same magic to Heinz Field. The chatter started subtly, with fans and analysts noticing a sudden flurry of activity around Pittsburgh's front office. Agents, scouts, and insiders have been whispering about a potential deal, and the pieces seem to fit together neatly. A team in need of dependable pass catching, a player hungry for a new challenge, and a city that thrives on high-stakes football drama. MEYERS' arrival could instantly shift the balance for the Steelers' passing game, creating matchup nightmares and adding a new layer of unpredictability for opponents. As the Steelers continue to evaluate their roster and prepare for the upcoming season, the prospect of adding Mr. Third Down to their ranks has fans buzzing. Social media is alight with speculation, mock celebrations, and debates over how Meyers will mesh with the current receiving core. Will he become the chain-moving hero Pittsburgh has been longing for? Or is this just another tease in a league full of what-ifs? One thing seems certain. If the rumors hold any weight, the Steelers may have just pulled a masterstroke in their pursuit of a high-octane offense. JAKOBI Meyers in black and gold? It's a storyline too juicy to ignore. And for now, the city of Pittsburgh can only wait and wonder. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.